Hey guys, I'm Glitter Valkyrie, and today I'm going to show you all the plus 10 units in my barracks. I know that you guys have seen all the questionable things that I do when I'm summoning, but you don't really get to see the results of all of those decisions. And I've been playing since day one, and some of these projects took me years to complete, so I thought it would be fun to kind of show you all of these projects today. And I think that we're going to go in order of game for the order of the units, starting with Shadow Dragon, so I really hope that you guys enjoy this tour. Okay, my first unit today is Sheida, and she was actually my second plus 10 project. She's my favorite character from Shadow Dragon, and I built her around the time where I was starting to take Arena sort of seriously, and I had given her R-Dual Flying, and it was really good for a really long time, but now that I have some higher scoring units, I don't really use her for Arena anymore, and I gave her like a completely new kit. And she is going to be Resplendent next, so just imagine her with more stats. But I did give her Fury 4, and it's so good with her PRF, and it also works really well with Pegasus Flight, which is kind of a niche skill, but I think it really works for her. She does require some investment to shine, but I love my Sheida, and I hope that more people will take a look at her now that she's going to be a Resplendent.
I don't want to hurt you!
Okay, so Norn is actually the only character on this list that I'm not really attached to character-wise. I plus 10'd her because I needed a good enemy phase archer for late season in AR, and I really liked her hair. So that's how she came to be. And this build didn't really come together until the Lion King pity broke me on that TMS banner. And ever since I gave her that skill, she performs so well against so many really common threats in AR. And I know that a lot of people will build a plus speed Spendthrift Norn because honestly it is probably better. But for the specific role that I have her in, she works so incredibly well, and honestly, no matter what you do with her, she is a great investment.
No lollygagging!
Okay, so this is actually my only Shadows of Valencia unit because all of my other favorites are either 5-star locked or they are grails from that game. And I picked Claire because she was a standout in that game for me, and once I had finished my Sheida on my Arena Core, I was like, well, she works well, and Claire is pretty much a blue version, so I should probably do this. And for a while, this build worked incredibly well for Arena Core, but the build has aged really, really poorly with some of the newer units that we've gotten. She can't really ploy very, very reliably anymore, so I really do want to give her an entirely new kit, but I am waiting for the right fodder. This is probably my most lackluster build today, and I'm so sorry to all the Claire fans. I love her too, and I promise that I will make her good again one day.
You brute!
Alright, now we have Best Girl from FE4. So the story with this Evelyn is I played FE4 and it took me hours to beat that final chapter with all the sleep staves because I ran out of restores. And I went to sleep that night after beating it, and I woke up the next morning and I was like, I know what I must do. I have to have an FE4 character, and she is the best. So I spent all the grails on her, and she is so incredibly useful. The Palm Staff is really one of the best F2P weapons in my opinion, and with attack speed solo 4, she outspeeds a lot of units. I do want to give her a new C skill at some point, but for now, this works so incredibly well, and I am so happy that I spent the grails on her. Okay, next up we have Nana, and I liked Nana before I even played the Jugdrill games. I had her at +3 for a really long time, and then when I finished FE4 and I finished Thracia, she ended up being one of my standouts, and I thought, why not? You can never have too many healers. So I did want to make her a little bit different from Evelyn, so she does have two different staves. First is the Ovoid Staff so that she can mitigate the recoil from the push, and then I have Trilemma just because it's pretty, and I did sacrifice Maribel for Dazzling, so I wanted to make the most of it with that foddering. I do use her in Arena Assault every week because Razzle Dazzle always helps, and she is a great choice if you do need a cav healer, so I'm really glad that I built her. Okay, on to FE6, and this is my Lolina. And I actually 5-starred her before she had a PRF just because I loved her character so much. And she really became fantastic once she got that PRF. She is an amazing nuke with special spiral and glimmer, and I use her in Mjolnir every week paired with Itsuki, and they're actually a really great duo. I usually have her nuke and then I switch them out for protection, and they work really, really well together. I do really want to replace her A skill with Death Blow 4 or maybe an Impact at some point, and I do need to change her C as well, but she really does perform great right out of the box, even if we have some newer units that might perform a little bit better. She is Hector's kid, so I'm really, really glad that I built her.
Oh, you! Enough!
Alright, we have my Klein, and he is my favorite male character from FE6, and he's probably one of my most useful characters that you will see today. He is one of my dedicated Abyssal map clearers. Pulse Smoke is so great for all those enemies with instant specials, and he can quad very reliably with the build, and yes, I did feed him NA green, but he puts in so much work for me that I really don't regret it. I will say that it's always helpful to have at least one Brave Bow user, and he fulfills that role so well. So I would say that if you're thinking about building him, go for it, because I just get so much use out of mine.
Ha! I won't miss.
And now we're on to FE7, and despite the fact that it's my favorite game in the series, I actually only have 2 characters at plus 10 because my other favorites are 5-star locked like Ninian and Hector, and my other favorites aren't here like Oswin and Urk. So this is my Matthew, and I actually plus 10'd him before he got his PRF. I free pulled a 5-star one during one of the anniversaries, I don't remember which, and I took it as a sign that I should build him since I love the whole Ostian crew. So I'm going to show you my pre and post refined builds for him because I made some pretty questionable decisions back in the day. This build was before Spy's Dagger, and it worked for a while, but honestly, his PRF is just so much better. I really started using him a lot more once Layla came out because they just pair so well together. And, you know, after how things happened in FE7, it just feels right to support them. I really love this Matthew because he is an example of a historically bad unit made good, and I'm really glad that I invested in him.
You're wide open.
And now we have, in my opinion, the best healer in the game. So Sarah was actually my first plus 10 unit, and she remains one of my most useful units to this day. And I could probably talk for like 20 minutes about her, but I won't. So she's my favorite FE7 character, actually one of my favorites from the entire series. And on launch, when everybody was hoping to pull Lynn, I was hoping to pull Sarah. And this build really took off once they added the Razzle Dazzle update. And once they did that, I would add a merge for her every time I got 20k feathers, and she ended up being my first plus 10 with Pain and Double Savage Blow. But I have since given her every seasonal staff that's available in the game, along with a lot of different ace skills that would probably upset a lot of people. But I love my Sarah, and I feel like her stats are so well-rounded. She's very, very versatile, and I don't care how much power creep we see, I will always use my Sarah. So rather than talking for another 20 minutes, I am just going to show you all the things that I have done for her. So next we have Sacred Stones, and I have a ton of characters from this game because it is one of my favorites. And this is my original La Rochelle, and she took me such a long time to complete. So I didn't get her on her original banner, and I actually pulled my first copy on one of those old 4-star banners. And after I got one, I stopped because surely I would get more copies with her being in the 4-star pool. And after I did that, I didn't pull another one for 7 months straight. So this La Rochelle is really special to me because it took me such a long time to finish her. So Evaldi is not my favorite choice for her. I feel like it really needs a refine. Instead, I like to run Juicy Wave or Floor Guide for her. And this build is really fun because Mystic Boost kind of heals that recoil damage from the push, and it really, really helps with her survivability. And I gave her Panic Smoke because I just felt like she deserved it. So a lot of people probably wouldn't invest this much in La Rochelle because Reinhardt exists along with a couple of other different options, but La Rochelle is, in my opinion, the best character from Sacred Stones and deserves all the gifts, so I am so glad that I built her.
Watch this!
So this is my Ross, and he is actually one of my more recent projects, and I built him because I always used him in Sacred Stones, and Water Season can be incredibly painful in Arena. He actually deals with a lot of those common threats very well, like Legendary Chrom, and he scores very, very well in Arena, so he was a good choice for me. I gave him a hammer just for utility because of all the armors that we see, and I might switch that out for maybe like a guard axe or the huge fan in the future. And I do need to replace his C-skill as well, but for right now, Garcia's son puts in a ton of work, and he is a great choice for a merge project.
I'm a warrior!
So this is my wonderful 39 attack Tethys, and she has incredible survivability, and I love this unit so much. As soon as I saw that she was going to be in Fae, I knew that I had to plus 10 her. And while her attack stat is really low, this whole build is based around her res, and it works so incredibly well. She can debuff very reliably with Tamari, and she takes hits like a champ with Fortress Defense Res 3, and then she just nukes everything with Glacies, and it's perfect. She can definitely run sabotages, but if you're one of my dancers, you have Wings of Mercy because I just get the most utility out of that. And she's actually one of my Abyssal units because for some reason every enemy unit thinks that they should attack her because she's a dancer, and they do so little damage, and she works very, very, very well. So if you are looking for a budget-friendly dancer, I think she is a great choice, and I'm really glad that I built her.
Don't be so sure.
So this is my Joshua, and I built him because he was one of my standouts from Sacred Stones. I feel like he had so much personality, and they have to add Natasha eventually, so I have to be ready for when she gets added. So this build really didn't come together until most recently when Asper and Nyla showed up for me on the Halloween banner, and I just instantly knew what I had to do for him. He does need flowers and maybe a weapon refine, but he uses Nullsea Disrupt so well. He does hit over 40 res and speed with the solo, and he's just so much fun to use, and I'm really glad that I built him.
I'll test your worth.
This is my Halloween La Rochelle, and she is actually my favorite unit in all of Fae to use. Her design is just so amazing, and her voice lines are really some of the best in the game, so it just puts a smile on my face every time that I use her. So I actually have two builds for her. The first one is Super Mad Scientist La Rochelle with lots of fury and her Brazen. And it works amazing, but it does have to be used with Wings of Mercy dancers or like some repo bots to work. And this one is my newest build with the Melon Float, which gives extra attack and res in that first round of combat. And it also heals, which is great with the recoil from the push. And basically, if she is between 25% and 75% HP, she gets like 70 attack and I think 61 speed, and she's in Desperation. So it actually works really, really well. And to round out her kit, I gave her Ruptured Sky just because she deserves only the best. And I gave her Pulse Smoke because she is also one of my Abyssal map clearers, and it's really, really helpful. And I love using her with a physical unit like Klein for Abyssals, and I am just so happy that I got her to plus 10 because she is my favorite unit in the game.
A token of my gratitude.
So this is my Alencia, and she actually took me 3 years to complete. About half of these were pity breakers, and then I was close enough to plus 10 that I intentionally summoned every time she came back on a banner, and my favorite character from the Tellius series is finally plus 10. She's one of my most fun units to use because I love Gale Force builds, and she really pulls it off pretty well with Dive Bomb. I may have killed a flying pirate for this, but she's so much fun to use, and I do need to give her a rain skill at some point. I do hope that she gets her Splendent status one day, even though her art is actually some of my favorite in the game. I feel like the stats could use a little bit of a boost, but honestly, I'm so glad that I got to build her, even though there might be some stronger characters out there, and yeah, I'm really glad that I did this.
A thrashing for you.
So this is my lovely Racen, and Herons are my absolute favorite beast units because they are dancers and they are pretty. And as soon as he was added to Fae at 4-star rarity, I was determined to make him plus 10. And his sister was actually almost a part of the tour as well. I've actually only intentionally summoned for Leanne once, and she is like plus 8. So maybe his sister will join him here one day. But he is part of my arena core on weeks that aren't water. I kind of alternate him and Ross right now. But most of the time he is running G-Dual Flying, which is kind of outdated, but it does work for me. And all these skills are for score, but when he is not in arena, I have this. And it maybe wasn't my greatest decision, but it felt right at the time, and I wasn't going to use Surtur anyway. So these are my two different Racen builds, and he is a great budget dancer if you're looking for one. I highly recommend him just for the mobility alone. He's so good.
I will not be controlled.
So this is my Chrom, and unfortunately he's the only awakening unit you'll see today because all the other Chroms and Lucinas are 5-star locked, and my Olivia and my Emran are not done at the time of recording this. So the story of this Chrom is actually one of my favorites. He came from the Valentine's banner from a couple years ago, the Grail Mercenaries one. I was trying to pull Valentine's Ike, and I pulled a bunch of Chroms in the process, and then I was pity broken at a pretty high rate by minus attack Ares, and I was so upset when it happened. But you know what? I had all these Chroms, and I thought I was going to make something good out of it, and I plus 10'd him. And I love him so much because he made a really sad situation into a good one, because I use him every week in Arena Assault, and I just love him. He actually hits pretty decent speed and res with his built-in bond, and the build is pretty straightforward. I love him because he's Chrom, and I will keep asking for Resplendent status until it happens. I'm really hoping that it happens one day.
Our bonds give me strength.
Okay, so this is the first Xander that you're going to see today, and he was actually my first Grail project. As soon as they announced that Grails were going to be a thing, I knew where all of mine were going. He is my second favorite Xander, and I remember, like, as soon as I would get enough Grails to get a copy, I would use it, and after a really long time, he was finally plus 10. So this build was the original one that I ran after I got certed for the first time. And SS4 is incredible on him. It's really tough for a melee to kill him, but over time, I have refined his kit a little bit, and this is my newest one. And it works so well because he's pretty much strictly an enemy phaser, and his res is actually workable with this A skill and his seal, and the C bolsters his attack a little bit as well. And I know that other Cavs have power crept him, but he is Xander, and I love him. And his art is great, so I really do think that he is worth using if you love Xander. Eventually I will spend an Ivy Kato on him and give him more flowers, but for right now, I am so happy with my original Xander.
You're going home in pieces.
So this Corrin happened because I did not have a plus 10 dragon, and Corrin is a character that I really liked. But fun fact, she was the first unit that I ever promoted to 5-star when I didn't know about IVs, and the one that I promoted was minus attack, and for the longest time I couldn't figure out why she wasn't good. But eventually I figured it all out, and I got her to plus 10, and for a while I ran this build before she had a PRF, but now she has this awesome PRF, so I gave her DC. And I probably should switch to plus speed at some point, but for now, she works so well, and I'm really, really glad that I built her.
My path is certain.
So this is what I did with 11 copies of Close Counter. So this Xander holds a special place in my heart because he is hands down my favorite Xander. He has the best dance animation in the entire game, and he was actually my first 5-star exclusive plus 10. And the story with this one, it was not easy to get him when he first came out. It took like 500 orbs to get one copy. And then after that, it was a lot easier. Like every time that he came back on a banner, I would pull a little bit, and he would come home multiple times, sometimes twice in one circle. And then I finally got him to plus 10 about a year after he came out. And so since he is my favorite Xander, I gave him a lot of daggers, mostly just for flair. But I usually switch between the Dusk Uchiwa that he came with. He's got Sky Mayogi, Minty Cane, that carrot that we got for free. And most recently I gave him the Courtly mask that works really, really well. And I also like it because if you give him a mask accessory, he has like 3 masks going on at once. But he's an amazing enemy phaser, and if you're looking for a dancer that can sometimes counteract Milla's isolation with a Fortress Defense Seal, he might be a good option. So yeah, he's my favorite Xander. I love him forever, and yeah, he was worth giving up 11 copies of Close Counter.
Time to celebrate.
So this is my Itsuki, and I built him because he is half Chrom, and Chrom is always worth it for me. He is part of my arena core, and he is so good for scoring and for destroying any dragons that show up. And I am so glad that I put the time and effort into him. He runs DC really well with his mixed bulk, and his ruse and his rally are very helpful. And then he's got joint drive speed with swift stance, which kind of helps patch that middling speed. And I think he might be the first user of an IV Kato when I eventually get around to spending them, because he could use a little bit more speed. But he is an excellent use of Grails. I feel like if you need a solid arena core member and you have extra Grails to use, he is an amazing choice. And so I think that has covered about everybody for my tour today.
Let's finish this!
So this is my brave Claude, and he was honestly like a dancing Xander moment where I got absurdly lucky on his banner. Like, I was pity broken so few times, and I am just so thankful to have him. I think that I take him to every single mode that we have in the game. I take him to Arena because of his 170 BST with that speed boon. I take him to AR and Mjolnir and pretty much any difficult content. And now I don't have to worry about all the Edelgards and Brave Hector and a lot of those common threats that you see in those modes. I will say that he's not invincible. He does have a difficult time with AoE nukes and some dragons, but I can usually work around it with the proper support. I love running Ruptured Sky on him, but if I do have Brave Lucina around, I like to run Deadeye, and he is just so much fun with any build that you give him. I think that he's very underrated, and I love this Claude so much, and I can't wait to see what they do with his legendary form. So this is the actual end of my tour, I promise. And I hope that you guys enjoyed watching all the questionable things that I've done for my favorites. I'm sorry if it was a bit boring, but if you've ever wondered what I do with all the fodder that I get, this is the end result. So thanks for sticking around this long, and as always, thanks so much for watching, and have a wonderful day.